Hey, I'm so glad that you're here tonight. And I think we can all agree that this last year has been insane. I mean, it's just been crazy. And part of the reason is that all of our plans that we had were totally crushed. I mean, a lot of us had plans to go places and see people. And instead, we were having to face the fact that we have absolutely no control over the things that happen in our life. And that can be extremely depressing. Matter of fact, today we're going to look at a guy in the Bible who is one of my favorite people because he's the greatest prophet of the Old Testament. And he's referred to all the time in the New Testament. He was in the Hall of Fame in Hebrews. Get this, he was so powerful in his spiritual life that he prayed one time that it wouldn't rain, and it didn't rain for 3.5 years. And when this guy died, God sent a fiery limo, a chariot of fire, to pick him up and take him to heaven. Now, I tell you all that because he had an experience in his life where he was suicidal. And you read this, you're like, how is that possible? Well, it's possible because any of us can get in a really bad place. And there's some reasons we get there and some things we can do about it. And this is not just a self-help thing of you do these 3 things and everything's fine. It's just the reality that we live in a broken world and we have a lot of issues and we need each other. We need recovery. We need to be in a smaller group so we can talk about the things that we're going through. And that doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a preacher like me, and I have counseling and I love recovery. I got to get back in to recovery, or whether you're just struggling with drug addiction or major depression, anxiety, like I struggle with. That there's still some things you can learn and know and trust God in to help you with. So I'm going to read this whole story about what happened to Elijah in 1 Kings chapter 19. It's an amazing story. And he has just defeated hundreds of prophets of Baal. He had a showdown at Mount Carmel. Fire fell from heaven, and consumed the sacrifice. And he's thinking his plans are that now Israel is going to turn to God. Like the king is going to turn back to God and the people are going to turn back to God. And there's going to be a national revival, this nationalism that he's been praying for. And it doesn't happen. And his plans, his dreams, everything he's worked for seems to have gone down the drain and he's depressed. So 1 Kings chapter 19. Now Ahab told Jezebel everything Elijah had done, how he killed all the prophets with the sword. And so Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah to say, may God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I don't make your life like one of them. In other words, I'm going to kill you. And Elijah was afraid and he ran for his life. That's just a startling statement to me. And when he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there while he himself went another day's journey into the wilderness. And he came to a broom bush and he sat down under it and he prayed, God, I want to die. I've had enough, Lord, take my life. Have you ever had this experience? I'm not laughing at him, I'm laughing with him. Hey man, I'm the only one left. I'm no better than my ancestors. Come and take me. And he laid down under the bush and he fell asleep. And all at once an angel of the Lord touched him and said, get up and eat. And he looked around and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. And he ate and drank and he lay down again. Then the angel came back a second time, said, eat, for the journey's too much for you. He got up and he ate and drank, and strengthened by the food, he traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached the mountain of God called Horeb. And there he went into the cave to spend the night. This is an incredible picture of just being isolated and running from everything. And the word of the Lord came to him and said, what are you doing, Elijah? And he said, well, I've been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites, he's informing God, have rejected your covenant and torn down your altars, and they put your prophets to death with the sword. And I'm the only one left. I'm the only one, God. The whole world is on my shoulders, and they're trying to kill me. And the Lord said, go out and stand in the mountain in the presence of the Lord, because I'm about to pass by you. Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountain apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord, but the Lord wasn't in the wind. And after the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord wasn't in the earthquake. And after the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord wasn't in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. And when Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face. He went out and stood in the mouth of the cave. And the voice said to him in a whisper, what are you doing here? And he goes through the whole story again. I've been very zealous for you. And the Lord said, go back to the way you came. Go to the desert of Damascus, and there you'll anoint Hazael, king over Aram. You'll anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, king over Israel, and Elisha, your successor, from Shaphat of Abel Maholah, to succeed you as prophet. And Jehu put to death any who escaped by the sword, and Elisha put to death those who escaped by the sword of Jehu. He says, but yet I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed down to Baal, whose mouths have not kissed him. In other words, you're not all alone, Elijah. Like my whole plan isn't just on your shoulders. And so I want you to see in Elijah's life 3 things that cause strong people to become weak. And the first is you just wear yourself out. I mean, you're always going, you're always doing. And Elijah, if you go back and read the whole story, he wasn't just under duress for a day. He was under duress for weeks, for months. There was a fugitive poster out with his picture on it saying, hey, wanted dead or alive. And that pressure day after day after day can cause you to just keep pushing, to always be in a hurry. And if you respond by drinking lots of beer and lots of coffee, by not sleeping, you're going to be burned out. You're going to be exhausted. I'll give you a little test to see if maybe you're wearing yourself out. Listen to these questions. You live with a chronic sense that there's never enough time. I'm always behind. No matter how fast I run, I can't catch up. You have an increased sense of irritability. You're just always negative and critical and angry. You have physical tension in your body. You're tapping your fingers or biting your fingernails or rubbing your wrist is what I do. You're being preoccupied and not fully present in the moment. Your mind's always wandering about other things. There's a loss of a sense deep of gratitude and joy. You're negative and you're pessimistic. You find yourself talking really fast. Matter of fact, when somebody's talking to you, and I do this, I'm so terrible at this, you'll finish somebody's sentence. I mean, you know where they're trying to get to, and you'll try to help them get along so that they can hurry up. You feel like you're missing out on life. You're in Walmart and you count the items in that, 20 items or less line because you're like, hey, I got to hurry. I got to get out of here. And when you're always pressing, it doesn't matter how godly you are. If you're always going, you're going to burn out. So the first is you're wearing yourself out. Your rhythm is out of control. The second is you freak out over criticism. Can I tell you something? Not everybody is going to like you. And for a lot of you, you grew up in families where your family was critical. Your parents were critical. It only takes one critical person, man, to set you in a free fall. And just let me tell you, that's going to happen. It happens to me all the time. I am shocked because I'm such a humble, kind person. But I get criticism all the time, and all your plans aren't going to work out. I mean, listen, we live in a broken world filled with broken people, and we're all broken. And for me, like I am a sinner that's been saved by grace. And yes, now I am a child of God. But even with that, I make mistakes. Thirdly, you begin to shut people out. This startles me about Elijah because everywhere he goes, he has his servant with him. I mean, whenever he's going anywhere, his servant's with him. And then he's so depressed, he's so down, he's so discouraged, and it's set off by one skanky lady who said, I'm going to kill you. Just one person, a lady who says, I'm going to kill you. He's killed all these prophets of Baal. He's seen all this stuff happen, and his spirit is broken, and he begins to shut out everybody, even his closest companion, his servant. Listen, when you're in trouble, you know you're in trouble when you begin to isolate yourself, to insulate yourself, and then you begin to implode. And let me just tell you, when you do that, and I've been there, I'm older and I'm a Christian and I'm a preacher and I'm still there where I have to be careful not to be by myself so that I begin to do some crazy things that are at-risk behaviors in an attempt to make me feel restored quickly. It's not possible. And Elijah hit the wall. 12 years ago, I've told this story a lot of times, but 13 years ago, I was pushing and pushing and pushing. I was doing the Lord's work, trying to get the campus, our first campus, up and running on Lincoln Road. That's how crazy it is now that we have 5 campuses. And one day I just drove up to the church and I couldn't open the door. My arm wouldn't move. It's like, I was having like a nervous breakdown. And it dawned on me, I had been living in the red zone way too long. And I don't know where you are, but I'm going to tell you, when you live in the red zone for too long, you're headed for a major league breakdown and you need a messenger in your life. And it may be me tonight. I may be the messenger saying, hey, you need to get help. For me, it was a doctor friend of mine said, hey, man, you're in a bad place. It was a counselor that said, hey, let me help you walk through this. It was a friend who said, hey, I love you. And I want us to get away together. And I just want us to have fun. I want us to try to think about solving the world's problems. And I began to take some steps to recovery. And let me walk through some of those steps. This is not a, 1, 2, 3, everything's going to be fine. Here's some steps, and I'm still recovering from anxiety and control and worry and all those things that drive me, performance, wanting people to like me, acceptance, an approval addict. Here's some steps to recovering. Number 1, I'm trying to recover a rhythm of rest. I'm trying to really get some soul rest where I get away. And sometimes I have to go out of town. Sometimes I have to go for, a walk like on a trail and just kind of get, away from like all the static that surround me so that I can reconnect with the Lord. And let me tell you, I need to work out, when I walk and I do the things, when I eat well, when I get some really deep rest, soul rest, deep sleep, I begin to recover and get restored because it's just easier to numb out. And when you choose to numb out with different things, and for Elijah, I think it was isolation, you begin to get worse and worse and worse and farther away from the help that you need. Secondly, you reflect on the greatness of God. I love this about Elijah because he goes out into the edge of the cave and he begins to reconnect with the wonder and majesty of God and just begin to be an expert on how good God has been to you. It's been real easy with my family being back from Africa for the last few weeks or last month because they tell me stories of where they live in Africa. And I turned off the light in the hallway the other night and my grandson said, did the power go out? Because their power can go out indiscriminately and stay out for a long period of time. Just how blessed we are to have what we have. And it's so easy to take that for granted. Thirdly, reconnect with God. Elijah had spent so much time working for God. Man, this is so condemning to me. That he stopped really spending time and enjoying the presence of God. And sometimes the thing that we need is we just need a fresh encounter. When he went out, God wasn't in the storm. God wasn't in the earthquake. He wasn't in the lightning. God was in a still, small voice that asked a question. What's going on? What are you doing here? And it may be that, you can get by yourself and listen to some Christian music and begin to listen for that whisper from God because you can't believe, this is good, you can't believe everything you feel. Sometimes your feelings are right on target. You need to listen to them. But sometimes your feelings are telling you things that just aren't true, like Elijah's feelings. I'm the only one left. Nobody gets me. Everything's coming to an end. My plans aren't working out. God's not there. And God says, hey, would you chill? I've got you. I've got thousands of people that are working for me, that love me, that know me. And lastly, you return to God's plan for you. For some of you, it's to get back into church, corporate worship. It's to get back into counseling. is to get back into your recovery or AA or whatever it is, the path that you were on before COVID hit. And God is saying, hey, I want you to return back to the things that were making you healthy and getting you on track. And that's what Elijah did. What a great story. He goes back to where he kind of pushed everything aside. He's renewed and refreshed, and God begins to use him in a powerful way in the lives of other people, especially in the life of Elisha. So I'm going to pray for you. I want to pray with you. I hope you'll pray for me, because we're all recovering from something. And I would say, congratulations that you're at recovery. So smart. And congratulations that you and I are still alive after all of the COVID stuff. And hey, if you're not dead, God's not done. So let me pray with you. Father, I thank you that, God, that you love us, not because of our performance, not because of other people's approval, but because of our relationship with you and a covenant with you that was cut by Jesus on the cross. And so today, Father, refresh our souls. God, fill us with your Spirit, God, so that we can live the abundant life that you've called us to live. And I pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.